They say the beach is the soul of Jamaica, where the island breathes, where every child learns to swim before they can write, and where generations have gathered to watch the sunset and dream of freedom. But what if I told you that in 2025, most Jamaicans can't even touch their own sand anymore? That from Montego Bay to Negril, fences now stand where laughter once echoed, and signs read, "Private property, no locals allowed. Stay with me till the end." Because what you're about to hear is not just a story, it's a confession of how a paradise was stolen. The answer to how Jamaica lost its beaches will shock you to your core. It began quietly, almost invisibly, around 2018, during a period of foreign investment growth. The government of Jamaica signed a series of economic partnership agreements with Western development groups. On paper, they were meant to modernize coastal tourism and create jobs. In reality, these contracts opened the door for foreign corporations to lease entire stretches of coastline for up to 99 years. The fine print, hidden deep in hundreds of pages of legal jargon, stated that exclusive tourism rights would apply to non-resident visitors and investors. It sounded harmless, until the fences went up. Villagers who had fished the same waters for centuries suddenly found guards blocking their path to the sea. "Me born ya," one fisherman said on live TV, tears in his eyes. "How me can't even walk pon de sand me grandfather build boat pon?" He was arrested 2 hours later for trespassing on commercial property. No one knew how deep it went. Not until a young researcher named Rohan Miller, a graduate from UWI, stumbled upon something that changed everything. He had been studying foreign investment data when he noticed strange payments coming from a shell company in the Cayman Islands to the Ministry of Tourism. The payments were labeled environmental partnership transfers. But when he dug deeper, he found that those same funds were linked to an offshore account belonging to a major European real estate group, Blue Wave Global Resorts Limited. The trail led further to leaked emails between Jamaican officials and foreign investors. One email read, "Ensure public access to beaches remains restricted until resort operations stabilize. We can handle PR later." That line spread like wildfire when it leaked. The government dismissed the leak as fake news. But weeks later, a whistleblower from inside the Ministry of Land Development confirmed that over 60% of Jamaica's coastline had already been contractually secured under private lease agreements. The revelation stunned the nation. Talk shows buzzed, church sermons turned political, musicians began writing songs about the stolen sea. One reggae artist, Tafari Blaze, released a song called "No Sand for de Poor," and it went viral overnight. "Dem tech we land, now dem tech we see. All for $, but not for we." But behind the music and outrage, something darker was happening. An investigative journalist named Marcia Blake, who worked with a small Kingston-based independent outlet, began receiving anonymous messages warning her to stop publishing stories about foreign land rights. She ignored them. A week later, her home was broken into. Her laptop was stolen, but strangely, nothing else was touched. The message was clear: back off. Meanwhile, foreign investors were making bold moves. In 2023, a group of American and European developers launched the Golden Coast Initiative, a massive multi-billion-dollar project to transform Jamaica into the Caribbean's premier luxury destination. At the groundbreaking ceremony, government officials smiled and spoke of prosperity. But on the same day, dozens of locals from nearby fishing villages were served eviction notices. The justification? Environmental safety and coastal protection zones. But as the bulldozers came, those same zones turned into private villas and luxury golf resorts. And when the people protested, police were sent in not to protect them, but to clear them out. A grandmother from Street Ann told a reporter, "Me bury me husband near DC. Now dem say me can't even visit him. All dis for tourist." Still, the full truth remained hidden until one night in late 2024, when a hacker group calling themselves Sons of Garvey released a 900-page document called the Sand Papers. The documents revealed shocking details. Foreign lobbyists had directly funded campaign donations to several Jamaican politicians, British and US. Investors were given exclusive rights to sand mining and shoreline maintenance. The leases for these tourism zones were protected by international trade laws that forbade Jamaica from reversing them without paying billions in compensation. In short, the beaches were legally gone. The files even included a recorded voice note from a senior government official saying, "Jamaicans won't care. They don't read contracts. They love the sea, but not enough to own it." When that clip leaked, the island erupted. Crowds filled Halfway Tree. Students from UWI marched barefoot through Kingston, carrying buckets of sand and chanting, "We want back, we beach!" For the first time in decades, Jamaica was united, poor and rich, Rasta and Christian, Maroon and city youth, all standing for one cause, to reclaim what was theirs. But in the background, another secret deal was brewing, one that would take everything to the next level. A deal so powerful that even the Prime Minister himself had tried to bury it. And when it finally came to light, the truth would not only shake Jamaica, it would expose how the Western world still controls the island through invisible chains. By the time dawn broke the next morning, Jamaica was no longer calm. The story of the sandpapers had flooded social media overnight. Every radio station, from Irie FM to Zip, was talking about it. In the markets, in the buses, in the schools, people whispered, "So dem really sell the beach?" Government spokesmen appeared on television, brushing off the leaks as foreign propaganda. But something felt different this time. The public wasn't buying it. For the first time in years, Jamaicans began asking dangerous questions. Who really owns Jamaica? Why can't we walk on our own sand? And what else have they sold without telling us? That afternoon, journalist Marsha Blake got a call from an unknown number. "Meet me at Emancipation Park, near the fountain, midnight." The voice was low, foreign, and before she could respond, the line went dead. Despite fear in her chest, she went. At midnight, the park was empty, except for a man sitting on a bench wearing a cap and dark glasses. He handed her a flash drive and said, "Everything they don't want you to know about the Golden Coast Initiative is on there. Be careful. If they find out, you'll disappear." Then he walked away into the darkness. When Marsha opened the files, she froze. The folder was titled Operation Coral Shield. It contained classified emails between high-level Jamaican officials and Western corporations, not about tourism, but about strategic security cooperation. According to the documents, the Golden Coast Initiative wasn't just an investment deal. It was a joint operation involving American, British, and Canadian agencies. Their real goal: to secure full control of Jamaica's coastlines for long-term monitoring and trade security. That meant the beaches weren't just privatized, they were militarized. Hidden deep in one PDF was an even more chilling detail. An audio transcript from a secret meeting in Washington. An American advisor said, "Caribbean nations are small but strategically vital. If we control their ports, beaches, and digital networks, we control regional influence." And then another voice, one that made Marsha's stomach drop, replied in a familiar Jamaican accent. "Understood, sir. My government will cooperate fully." The speaker was none other than Prime Minister Andre Holness. Within hours, Marsha contacted her friend Rohan Miller, the UWI researcher who had first uncovered the offshore payments. Together, they decided to publish the files in small batches, piece by piece, across encrypted channels. But before they could upload the first file, their apartment Wi-Fi went dead. Then the lights flickered. Moments later, they heard footsteps outside the door. Rohan whispered, "They find we." They escaped through the back window and fled into the night, carrying only the flash drive. By morning, state-run media reported that 2 cybercriminals were under investigation for spreading misinformation aimed at destabilizing the economy. The message was clear: the government was declaring war on the truth. Meanwhile, Jamaica's coastline was transforming at a terrifying speed. On the north coast, massive dredgers could be seen offshore, scooping sand by the ton. Residents of Discovery Bay began filming and uploading videos of huge foreign ships operating in the night, escorted by patrol boats. One video showed what looked like foreign soldiers in black uniforms, setting up fences along a newly claimed resort area. "Dem no even hide anymore," one man said in the video. "Dem a build wall pon top of D people's history." Soon after, that man's account disappeared, and so did he. In Montego Bay, anger reached a breaking point. Fishermen and taxi drivers gathered near one of the fenced resorts and began tearing down the private property signs. Police arrived, firing tear gas. Chaos erupted. One officer reportedly shouted, "Me, sorry, me people me have to do me work." He was crying. The tear gas mixed with his own tears. It was no longer a protest. It was a rebellion. Within hours, social media exploded with the hashtag #FreeToBeach. Jamaicans from every parish joined in walking barefoot to the sea, singing old freedom songs and placing buckets of sand in front of government buildings. The world began to notice. International journalists flew in, but many were denied access to coastal zones. Those who did manage to film were chased away by private security. And yet, the images that did emerge shocked the world. Locals standing behind barbed wire fences, staring at the same beaches they were born beside, while foreign tourists lounged freely just meters away. Then, one night, Rohan and Marcia released the first batch of Operation Coral Shield files online. They didn't use news websites or TV, they uploaded everything directly to the people through Telegram, Signal, and WhatsApp. Within 24 hours, hundreds of pages of secret agreements spread like wildfire across the Caribbean. The files exposed not just Jamaica, but similar deals happening in Barbados, the Bahamas, and St. Lucia, all under the same Western Development Network. The Caribbean was being quietly sold, island by island. The shock was global. African nations spoke out, comparing Jamaica's situation to neo-colonial land grabs on their own soil. In Burkina Faso, President Ibrahim Traoré was quoted saying, "They told you independence meant freedom, but if you cannot touch your own sand, your flag is only a decoration." The clip went viral across both Africa and the Caribbean. Suddenly, Jamaican youth began wearing shirts with his face and the slogan, "Freedom is not for sale." But as the world's attention turned to the Caribbean, something darker began to unfold behind closed doors. A secret emergency meeting was held inside Jamaica House, Kingston. The Prime Minister sat at the head of the table, surrounded by advisors and men in suits who didn't look Jamaican. "Gentlemen," he said softly, "we are losing control of the narrative. We need a distraction." One of the foreign men replied. "Then create one. What do you suggest?" the PM asked. The man smiled. "There are ways to make the people forget about sand." The room went silent. No one spoke. And outside, the sea crashed gently against the shore, the same sea that no Jamaican could touch. What they planned next would turn the island upside down and reveal the most shocking betrayal yet. It began 3 days later, just when Jamaicans thought they'd seen it all. Across the island, power suddenly went out. From Kingston to Montego Bay, the lights flickered and died. Street lamps went dark, radios cut off mid-song. Even the cell phone towers went silent. For 12 long hours, Jamaica was thrown into total blackout. No one knew what was happening. Rumors spread like wildfire: foreign hackers, terror attack, state of emergency. But none of those were true, because hidden inside Jamaica House that night, a new operation had already begun. The government called it Project Blue Tide. Its secret purpose: to erase all traces of the Operation Coral Shield leaks and to crush the uprising before it could spread. While the country was in darkness, teams of armed men, not police, not soldiers, raided homes of journalists, activists, and whistleblowers. They seized computers, destroyed phones, and detained dozens of people without charge. But there was one thing they couldn't find. Rohan Miller and Marcia Blake were gone. When the lights finally came back, something was different. Social media was down. Independent websites were offline. And national news anchors began reading identical scripts. The recent disturbances were caused by foreign misinformation campaigns designed to destabilize Jamaica's economy. Citizens are urged to remain calm. It felt like a message from another world, cold, robotic, rehearsed. Yet even with communication cut off, the people refused to be silent. Across the island, communities formed their own information networks. Fishermen carried flash drives from one coast to another by boat. Farmers hid printed pages of leaked contracts inside sugarcane fields. Children whispered the truth in classrooms when teachers weren't listening. A new underground Jamaica was being born, one that didn't need television or the internet to survive. Then came the explosion, literally. At around 4 a.m., a massive blast rocked the north coast near Discovery Bay. Locals described it as the loudest sound since the earthquake of '53. Windows shattered for miles. The sky glowed orange. When the smoke cleared, people realized what had happened. One of the offshore sand extraction barges had exploded. Dozens of foreign engineers were killed. The company involved, Blue Wave Global Resorts Limited, released a statement blaming sabotage. But that word only made Jamaicans angrier. Sabotage? One fisherman shouted on live radio. So we fighting we land make us terrorists now? By dawn, thousands of protesters had surrounded the Montego Bay Freeport. They weren't carrying weapons, only flags, drums, and buckets of sand. The chant was deafening. We want back we see. Meanwhile, inside a heavily guarded mansion overlooking the harbor, the Prime Minister held a private video call with representatives from 3 Western embassies. He looked exhausted. We need help, he said quietly. The protests are spreading. A woman's voice from the other side replied, We warned you this would happen. Keep the beaches secure. We'll send naval assistance if necessary. Naval assistance? The Prime Minister frowned. You mean stability, she interrupted sharply. Do you want Jamaica to look like Haiti? He didn't answer. When the call ended, he stood by the window, watching the city burn in the distance. His people, his country, his decisions. But deep inside, something broke. He whispered to himself, Me can't control them anymore. That same night, an unexpected video appeared online, grainy, low quality, but unmistakable. It showed Rohan Miller, alive, sitting in a dark room. He looked tired but determined. This blackout was no accident, he said. They think we'll forget, but they don't know Jamaicans. The real power is not in dem electricity, it's in D people. Operation Blue Tide is just another colonial trick. But I have everything, all D files. And me going release them one by one. Then he held up a hard drive labeled Project Atlantis, Final. That name, Project Atlantis, began trending across the Caribbean within hours. Nobody knew what it was. But everyone felt that it was big, too big for one island, maybe too big for the whole region. By morning, military trucks were rolling through the streets. The government announced a nationwide curfew to maintain order. But instead of calming the people, it ignited them. In Spanish Town, a priest opened his church to shelter activists. In Street Elizabeth, farmers blocked the main highway using tractors and tree trunks. In Kingston, UI students painted the words Free D Sand across the gates in bright yellow paint. The rebellion was no longer about beaches. It was about freedom itself. That evening, Marsha reappeared online with Rohan in a new broadcast streamed from an unknown location. Her voice was firm. We've found evidence that Project Atlantis is not just about Jamaica. It's part of a larger plan, a new trade corridor stretching from Florida to West Africa, controlled entirely by Western corporations. Jamaica was just the first test. She paused, then added, And one of the men who signed that agreement is sitting in our government right now. The room fell silent. That revelation hit harder than any explosion. Because if she was right, it meant the betrayal wasn't coming from outside, it was coming from the top. Across the ocean, global attention grew. African leaders began speaking out, demanding answers. Activists in Nigeria, Ghana, and Burkina Faso shared videos under one message. Jamaica's fight is Africa's fight. And once again, a voice echoed from Ouagadougou President Ibrahim Traoré, speaking at a youth forum. They steal from Africa. They steal from the Caribbean, but they cannot steal consciousness. Tell Jamaica. The revolution begins when the people stop begging and start building. The crowd roared. In Jamaica, that message went viral instantly. It became the anthem of the uprising. But while the people were rising, something darker was moving under the surface ships with no flags, sailing silently into Jamaican waters under cover of night. Foreign navies were coming. The island's freedom struggle had just become an international crisis. By the time the sun rose over the Caribbean, the water no longer looked peaceful. On the horizon, strange silhouettes appeared, foreign ships, their gray hulls gliding silently toward Jamaica's north coast. No flags, no identification, just shadows on the sea, Fishermen who saw them that morning described it like an invasion. "Mino di look of Navy vessel," one man said, trembling. "Demna comfy vacation." That same day, the government issued a statement claiming international partners were assisting Jamaica with coastal stabilization and security monitoring. But Jamaicans weren't fooled. They had seen those ships in the leaked documents under the same code name, Project Atlantis. And now it was unfolding in real time. At 9 a.m., residents of Ocho Rios reported something unbelievable. The beaches, once fenced off by private guards, were now fully occupied by armed men. They wore blue tactical uniforms with no country insignia. Helicopters hovered overhead. Locals were ordered to stay inside. "National security exercise," the soldiers said, but people knew what it really was, a silent occupation. By midday, videos began circulating online. Soldiers were unloading strange metallic containers onto the sand, stamping them with barcodes marked AT-117. Later analysis by activists revealed those were underwater monitoring units, devices capable of scanning deep-sea communication cables and tracking movement across the Caribbean waters. So it wasn't just about tourism anymore. It was about data, control, and surveillance. In Kingston, Prime Minister Andre Holness faced the most dangerous moment of his career. He held a private meeting with his cabinet and the foreign envoys who had pushed for the deals. When one minister questioned the secrecy, a foreign advisor leaned forward and said coldly, "You signed a 20-year agreement, Prime Minister. You belong to it now." Holness stared at the table. His hands were shaking. For the first time, he realized he wasn't running Jamaica anymore. He was managing it. That night, Rohan Miller and Marcia Blake released the Project Atlantis files. The documents exposed something that no one could have imagined. Western corporations had secretly acquired over 70% of Jamaica's coastal rights, including seabed mining zones and future underwater cable routes. AUK Bank held exclusive rights to process all payments from these zones, meaning even sand exports had to be approved in London. In exchange, Jamaican officials received personal accounts in Dubai and Geneva. It was colonialism, too, not with chains, but with contracts. And at the bottom of one memo, dated 3 years prior, was a chilling line written by an American consultant. By 2030, local populations will have limited direct access to the ocean. Jamaica will serve as the Caribbean's model for resource stabilization. The next morning, hundreds of thousands of Jamaicans poured into the streets. From Portmore to Negril, people carried flags, drums, and bottles of seawater. The chant grew louder. "Desand is we gold. DC is we soul." Police tried to control them, but many officers joined the crowd instead. Some threw down their shields, shouting, "Misian, fight me own people." In Montego Bay, a group of elderly women knelt on the sand, praying aloud, "God of Marcus Garvey, deliver we land." For the first time in decades, Jamaica felt united, poor and rich, Christian and Rastaman, uptown and downtown, all speaking with one voice. But the foreign powers were watching, and they were afraid. That evening, a top-secret call took place between Washington, London, and Kingston. A Western general spoke sharply, "Contain the protests. If you can't, we will." The Jamaican defense minister hesitated. "You mean intervention? Call it assistance," the general said. "We cannot allow another Burkina Faso situation in the Caribbean." The word Burkina Faso sent chills through the room. It was a coded warning, a reference to President Ibrahim Traoré's defiance, his nationalization of resources, and his rejection of Western control. The West feared Jamaica was about to follow that same path. Hours later, explosions rocked the harbor. Locals claimed they saw Jamaican fishermen firing homemade petrol bombs at the foreign ships. Others said the blast came from within one of the containers. No one knew the truth. But by dawn, one of the unmarked vessels was burning. Smoke rose over the sea like a dark flag. In response, drones began flying over Kingston. Roads were blocked. The military announced curfews across 5 parishes. Still, the people refused to back down. A young man shouted in a viral video, "If dem want to say, dem hafi take it from we hand." His face became the symbol of the movement, the Free Desand Revolution. Then, something unexpected happened. A group of lawyers, economists, and former politicians, including one who had once worked inside the Prime Minister's office, came forward with shocking evidence. They revealed that Jamaica's beach privatization law had been secretly drafted in London, not Kingston. It was copied almost word for word from a 1990 British offshore regulation designed for colonial territories. The revelation destroyed the government's credibility overnight. The people realized Jamaica had never been independent in the first place, only politically decorated, as Traoré had warned. And yet, in the middle of the chaos, something miraculous happened. On the third night of protests, the foreign soldiers stationed on the beach suddenly disappeared. Their ships pulled back into the fog. Nobody knew why. Some said they were recalled due to international pressure. Others whispered that a group of Caribbean nations led by Barbados, St. Vincent, and Grenada had quietly intervened, warning the Western powers that any further aggression would be seen as an act of war against the region. Whatever the reason, by morning the beaches were empty, no soldiers, no fences, just wind and waves. The people rushed to the shore. Old men kissed the sand. Children danced in the water. Drummers played until sunrise. For the first time in years, Jamaicans touched their sea again. But deep beneath the water, something still moved. The hidden cables, the underwater machines, the eyes of Project Atlantis. Because this wasn't the end. It was only the calm before the next storm. The morning after Jamaica reclaimed its beaches, the island felt like it was breathing again. Children splashed in the surf. Old women sang psalms on the sand. Fishermen pushed their boats out with pride, their feet sinking into the same shoreline they'd been banned from for years. But while the people celebrated, something darker was happening behind government doors. Inside Jamaica House, tension was rising. The Prime Minister had not been seen in public for days. Cabinet members whispered that he wasn't sleeping, that he spent hours staring at the sea from his office balcony, muttering to himself. And then, one night, something broke. He called an emergency meeting at 2 a.m., summoning only 5 men, his closest advisors. When they arrived, they found him holding a small black folder marked Confidential Atlantis Corps. "I need you all to listen," he said quietly. "Everything we've done, the deals, the leases, the ports, it's not just about money. It's about control, and not ours." He opened the folder and slid across several photos and documents. At the top of the page, the Atlantis Consortium. It wasn't a government agency or a single corporation. It was a shadow network made up of foreign companies, intelligence agencies, and billionaire investors. Their mission, according to the documents, was to privatize the Caribbean's natural resources under the disguise of environmental protection. And Jamaica? It was their pilot project, their testing ground. In one memo, an American executive wrote, "If Jamaica accepts full coastal digitization by 2030, we can replicate the model across the Caribbean and West Africa. The locals will never know they've been digitally colonized." The Prime Minister slammed the folder shut. "We were never partners," he said bitterly. "We were pawns," one of his advisors asked nervously. "So what now?" Holness whispered. "We find a way out, or we go down with them." But someone inside that meeting was already recording. 2 days later, an anonymous email arrived in journalist Marcia Blake's inbox. It contained an audio clip labeled Atlantis Core Meeting, 2:03 a.m. She listened, and her heart stopped. The Prime Minister's voice was unmistakable. The world was about to hear Jamaica's top leader admitting to secret foreign control of the nation's coastlines. Rohan Miller wanted to leak it immediately, but Marcia stopped him. "Not yet," she said. "Let the people breathe first, then drop it when the world is watching." So they waited, building anticipation, sharing clues online under the hashtag #WhoOwnsJamaica. Within days, millions across the Caribbean were demanding answers. Meanwhile, inside Parliament, cracks were forming. A few brave MPs began to speak out publicly. One of them, Minister Claudine Barrett, gave a fiery speech that went viral. "How can we call ourselves free when foreigners decide who steps on our sand? Independence means nothing if we rent our dignity." Crowds outside Parliament cheered. But that night, Minister Barrett's car was rammed by a black SUV on Hope Road. She survived barely with a fractured leg and a warning from the police. "Accidents happen. Stay quiet." She didn't. From her hospital bed, she appeared on live radio and said, "If anything happens to me, tell the people, look to the sea. That's where the truth lies." Her voice trembled, but it ignited a fire across the island. As the resistance grew, international pressure mounted. Western media painted Jamaica as unstable and under influence of radical elements. Aid programs were suspended. Banks froze accounts. Then came the ultimate betrayal. Leaked documents revealed that the very sand exported from Jamaica's shores was being used to build luxury resorts in Dubai, where the same ministers held secret investments. Every grain of sand stolen from Jamaica was a brick in their foreign mansions. That revelation broke hearts across the island. A fisherman from Portland said tearfully on camera, "Dem tek we sand, dem tek we dignity, and dem build paradise somewhere else." The video was shared over 10 million times. In response, the people launched Operation Backsand. They began collecting sand from local rivers, beaches, and even construction sites, placing it in small jars with handwritten notes. Return to sender. Hundreds of these jars were mailed to embassies of the nations involved. The symbolic protest became global. Caribbean diasporas in London, Toronto, and New York joined in, flooding foreign offices with jars of sand marked "Property of Jamaica." The message was clear. We're not your playground anymore. Then came the shock of the decade. Marsha and Rohan released the Atlantis Core audio recording live on their underground broadcast. Millions tuned in. In the clip, the Prime Minister's voice trembled as he said, "They don't care about the beaches. They're building something beneath the sea. A data fortress, a global network, and Jamaica is just the gate." The broadcast was cut off mid-sentence. Their signal jammed, but the clip had already spread. Within minutes, it was being played on radios across the Caribbean, Africa, and Latin America. The fallout was catastrophic. The Jamaican government collapsed. Half the cabinet resigned. The Prime Minister vanished from public view. Rumors claimed he had fled to London. Others said he was being held in protective custody at a military base in Street Mary. But no one could confirm anything. For the first time in history, Jamaica stood leaderless, but united. The people had no government, no president, no protector. Yet they had something stronger: truth. And across the ocean, whispers began to rise. African leaders were taking note. Reports emerged that Burkina Faso, Mali, and Guinea had offered to send technical experts to help Jamaica secure its digital and coastal sovereignty. President Ibrahim Traoré himself was quoted in an interview saying, "Jamaica's fight is the world's fight. The sea connects us, but freedom is what binds us." The revolution had gone global, but in the shadows of Kingston's harbor, divers reported seeing strange, glowing lights under the water where the foreign ships had once anchored. Whatever was buried beneath the sea had not been removed, and one final document from the Atlantis files hinted at something even more chilling. Phase 2 begins once local resistance collapses. The network must remain submerged until 2030. The battle for Jamaica wasn't over. It was only moving underwater. The morning sea looked calm, but everyone on the island could feel something shifting beneath it. For weeks, divers, fishermen, and coastal guards had reported strange phenomena: electrical surges under the water, sudden bubbling on calm days, and faint mechanical sounds that echoed through the coral reefs at night. Some said it was just old military debris. Others whispered it was the heart of Project Atlantis, still alive beneath the ocean floor. And then, one dawn, a fisherman from Port Royal made the discovery that would change everything. He was casting his net about a mile from shore when it snagged on something heavy. When he pulled it up, he found a strange, metallic cylinder covered in rust and coral growth. It wasn't a bomb, it was a data core, marked with a faint engraving, property of the Atlantis Consortium. He had no idea what it was. But when he handed it to a local tech student, the young man managed to connect it to a computer. What appeared on the screen made them freeze. It wasn't just data. It was a map, a detailed blueprint showing cables stretching under the Caribbean, connecting Jamaica to secret hubs in Florida, Bermuda, and the west coast of Africa. But that wasn't the most shocking part. At the center of the network, labeled in bold letters, was the Jamaica Node Central Command. The revelation hit like lightning. Jamaica had unknowingly become the digital control center for a new global surveillance system, tracking shipping, finance, communication, and even energy across the Atlantic. The very sea that fed them had been turned into a spy web. By midday, the file was leaked online. Screens across the world lit up with the headline, "Project Atlantis Exposed Jamaica was the hub of global control." Protests erupted instantly. In Kingston, thousands marched to the harbor. In London, Caribbean expatriates flooded Trafalgar Square with placards reading, "Stop the digital colonization." The West denied everything, of course. Government spokesmen called it disinformation, but it was too late. The truth was out, and this time, the people were ready to fight for real independence, not on paper, but in action. A national council of citizens, teachers, farmers, youth leaders, pastors, and soldiers gathered at Heroes' Park and made a declaration broadcast to the world. Jamaica will reclaim its sea, its land, and its data. We are no longer a plantation, we are a nation reborn. The new movement was called Back to Freedom. They began cutting ties with the Western corporations that had looted the island for decades. Contracts were canceled, offshore accounts frozen. Local engineers took over the coastal monitoring stations. For the first time in modern history, Jamaica's internet, energy grid, and port data were placed under national control. And then, something extraordinary happened. President Ibrahim Traoré of Burkina Faso sent a message broadcast live on regional radio. "To my Jamaican brothers and sisters, your courage is the fire of a new world. You have shown that freedom does not come from begging the empire, it comes from defying it." His words sent chills across the Caribbean. Within days, other African and Caribbean nations held emergency summits, discussing ways to create a new alliance, the Pan-African Caribbean Sovereignty Pact. Their goal: economic independence, shared defense, and protection against resource theft. For the first time since Garvey's dream, Africa and the Caribbean were speaking with one voice again. But not everyone celebrated. Late one night, as the nation celebrated a week of peace, a drone was spotted flying over Kingston Harbor. It hovered silently for several minutes before dropping a small package into the water and vanishing into the clouds. Divers retrieved it the next morning. Inside was a single waterproof case with a note written in English and French. "You stopped Phase 1. But Phase 2 is global." And beneath the note, a single flash drive. When the council opened it, they found new blueprints, maps showing undersea networks stretching across Asia, Africa, and Latin America. Jamaica had been only the beginning. The system they dismantled here was just one piece of a massive world operation. The war for sovereignty wasn't over, it was only moving to the next front. In the weeks that followed, Jamaica transformed into something no one thought possible. Local entrepreneurs reopened abandoned beaches as community zones. Villagers ran eco-projects powered by solar energy. Schools began teaching real history about colonialism, Garveyism, and digital imperialism. Tourists still came, but under new rules. They had to contribute to local development projects before setting foot on any beach. And on the first anniversary of their liberation, thousands of Jamaicans gathered at the shoreline for a ceremony. They stood barefoot in the sand as the national choir sang, "Jamaica Land We Love." She Wonks. At the end of the song, the new prime minister, chosen by the people, not foreign donors, raised the national flag and declared, "No more fences, no more lies. This sand belongs to us again." The crowd erupted in cheers. Drums thundered. Children ran into the waves, and for a moment, it felt as if the island itself, the mountains, the trees, the sea, was breathing again. But somewhere far away, in a corporate boardroom in Geneva, a man watched the footage on a screen and smiled faintly. "Let them celebrate," he said. "The real network was never under the sea." His assistant asked, "Where then?" The man leaned back and replied, "In their minds. As long as they depend on us for their news, for their loans, for their technology, they're still ours." He closed the laptop. The room went dark, and as the waves of Jamaica crashed softly against the shore, one truth remained. Freedom is never given. It must be taken and defended, again and again. That day, a single message appeared on walls across Kingston, painted in bright red letters. We own the sand now, but we still have to free the mind. And for the first time in decades, the world began to listen.